So here in this video, we're going to tackle the particles themselves. Okay, we're going to check out how they look and how they behave. Okay, so first of all, let's work on the behavior. I want this to emit a bit faster. Let's say 3, give or take 1. Okay, so they're just coming off the surface a bit faster. Okay, and let's try putting a turbulence field. All right, so you'll notice here the particles, when they're emitted with a speed and going in a particular direction, and then nothing happens. They just keep on going. So fields are a way of sort of pushing your particles to go in different directions, and different fields just do that differently. Okay, so you get different patterns, different motions depending on the fields that you use and the settings, right? And one of the most common fields you're ever going to use is probably a turbulence field. So that just uses like something like a noise pattern to sort of move your particles around just so they're not so straight. Okay, so to add a field, you select the particle still in your FX menu set. Up here, you'll find fields and solvers, and then you pick the field that you want. In our case, we want the turbulence field. So I click that, and Maya gives me this guy. This is my turbulence field. Okay, and the settings, I have my magnitude, which is strength, so how strong the turbulent field is. And then you have attenuation. Now this is interesting. Let's turn the magnitude up to, let's say, 20. I'll bring this closer. Start playing. Okay, let's try 80. Okay, so you see the particles aren't going straight. Some went down, right? And they're moving about. Now that's because of the turbulence field. Now attenuation, right? If it's at 0, regardless of where I put my field, it has an effect. Okay, if attenuation is higher, I have to be a lot closer for it to have any effect at all. So here you see nothing's happening, but if I go closer, you get some effect. Okay, so normally I just put this at 0, so wherever this is, it still affects the particles. Now frequency is the size of your noise. So if let's turn this down a bit, say 20. If I set my frequency to say 0.2, you'll see the pattern, right? It's a really big pattern with lots of big waves. If I put this lower, like 0.1, it's an even bigger pattern. If I turn this up, you'll get more patterns, but smaller. So if I say 0.5, see? Now, this becomes more apparent if you go to your particle and you go to your dynamic properties and you turn down the conserve value. Okay, by default, conserve is 1. If you turn this down, let's say 0.97, right? It's a very sensitive value. So just small changes, you'll see a big difference. So now it's okay, 0.7. 0.97. And you can see the particles tend to clump more. If I turn this down even more, 0.95. See, they tend to clump together more. And here you can see the patterns a bit better. Right? So that is my pattern with my, oops, where's my turbulence field? With my frequency at 0.5. Just to see it again, if it's 0.2, you'll see the pattern a bit better now. There you go. And then say a pattern of 1, you really have a lot of smaller ones. So there's no magic number for this. It's going to change depending on the look you're going for and the size of your object that you're working with. Okay, the scale. Okay, so maybe 0.7. Okay, so there you go. Now, lastly, for a turbulence field, you have your phase. So the phase just sort of moves around your noise, right? So let me add some more frames. You can see they're emitted, and they're pretty much just following the pattern, right? If I adjust any of these phase values, say I animate them, you can see that what happens is the pattern changes over time, right? So this can be very subtle, but you can see that the patterns are changing. Okay, so that's your turbulence field. Very, very, very useful, very, very common thing to use when you need a little randomness. Okay, next we want to go to our particles and give it a lifespan. So we don't want the particles living forever. So right now, maybe 3 seconds, give or take one, should be okay. So a maximum of 4 seconds as a lifespan. So no particle lives more than 4 seconds. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So again, it's a matter of tweaking your values. If you want more particles, if you want, stronger turbulence or less turbulence. I can even go to my nucleus and add a slight wind going in the positive x. So let's say a wind speed of 5. Maybe a bit more, like 20 also. There you go. So it's blowing this way nicely. Maybe 30. There we are. And don't forget, always, always do a play blast, because what you're seeing in the viewport isn't really the actual speed. It's not real time. Play blasts will give it to you in real time. So if you want to judge whether it's going too fast or whatnot, then the play blast is something that you have to look at. Okay, so that's a nice space, right? maybe you want it stronger or whatnot, then it's all a matter of tweaking. Okay. Now for the look can be a few different things. You can do some magic, right? So some energy is coming off that's making it dissolve or reform. Or you could do, you could go the end game route and have something like dust. Okay, so if we go with the dust route, let me just save this again. Uh, Dust, go down, selecting your particles, go down to shading and opacity and color, right? So opacity is set to off. So each particle is completely opaque. I can set this to age so that it changes as it grows old. And my max input is going to be my lifespan plus my lifespan random. So the oldest any particle can get is 4. So my input should be 4. Okay. And adjusting this graph, I can now have particles that fade in and fade out. There we are. And as far as color goes, we can do something different with this. So instead of going age as well, we can go with randomized ID. Okay, and what that does is it will pick the IDs of your particles and randomly add color. Okay, so look for dust-ish, brownish sort of hues, right? And you can see, yeah, let me just go against black so you can see it, right? So the nice thing here is if you want more of a particular color, you just give it more space, right? Okay, so if suddenly I want something that's like red, right? So you just give red more space, you'll see more of it. There we go. So sand, dusty look, like so. And I would say more particles. So I'm going to turn up my emission. So right now it's 525,000. Let's go for a flat 900,000. Yeah. So there you go. Pretty thick sandy uh, dust. Right. And that's it for this particle look. Next, we're going to look at caching and rendering.